Hello, everybody. Welcome to the free online study guide review of the F03 and F04 fire guard test. Since we are all locked in our houses, apartments, bedrooms during this quarantine, I always say the best thing to do is learn a new skill. So, why am I doing this? Well, I have a feeling that after the quarantine's over, everybody's going to want to go out to events. The events are the security gigs that pay the money. So if you want to be just a regular security officer, get your license, that's great. The most likely you're going to find something in the $15 to $18 an hour range. But if you get this certificate along with your security guard license, you will find positions where you'll be at events paying 20, 25, 30, possibly $35 an hour depending on the event. This is where the money is made. So this is, people with the security license, you have to get the F03 and F04 license. So we're going to go through this. So when we're out of this quarantine, you guys can go take your test. Guys and ladies, take your test, become an F03, F04, and along with your security license, and start hitting up those events because we're going to be hitting the summer season too. So, this is a study guide review. So, all this information is basically taken from the study guide that the FDNY has on their website, which is free. Here's the table of contents that goes along with the FDNY study guide. Like I said, there's some people that are visual learners, there are people that are auditory learners, and I think you combine the two, have a visual, a little bit of color here, a little bit of a Dullcore logo there, and maybe throw in a little bit of entertainment. We can get through this, retain it. Also, make sure that you have downloaded the PDF on the FDNY website. Just Google F03 study guide or F04 study guide, and go through it with me. Highlight what you need to highlight, things that you find that might be difficult to remember, and then once this quarantine lifts, go to 9 Metro Tech, take your test, get your your license or whatever letter certificate they give you if you don't have an approval from a employer, and go out there and make some money. So some requirements. Let's go through some requirements. You have to be at least 18 years old or older to take the test. When you're there, make sure that you bring 2 forms of identification. That's your driver's license, security license, New York State license for non-driver's license holders, or what was the other one? Passport. Um, when you take the test, you have to have a letter from, well, you don't have to get your license, a physical license, you have to have a letter from your employer saying that you or have a recommendation to have your certificate of fitness. If you don't, it's okay. You can still take the test, and FDNY will give you this letter that says that you have passed the test, and all you need is a letter from that employer that hires you, and then you can get your license that day. You just drive to Metro Tech, say, hey, here's my letter, pay the $25 per fire guard. So F03 is $25, F04 is $25. The crazy thing is, it's one test. So you pass that test, you can get your F04 to go to an outdoor event, and if you're tight on money, go to that outdoor event, make some money on there, come back at your F03. So you can do indoor events like Jacob Javits Center, outdoor events, places that are like Jones Beach concerts. Um, so here's some other stuff like just some other stuff. Specific duties for F03s and F04s. But we're here to learn the items on the test. Ways you can pay, just like you pay for anything: cash, credit, debit, or personal or money order check. If you do the check, make sure it's payable to the New York City Fire Department. The application fee is per certification, but like I said, you only have to take one exam. So if you got $50 on you, get both of them. It will pay off. Trust me. Here's some other stuff if if it's getting waived, but that's what we're here for. Some more information: you must pass the score with a 70% or higher. And then it's F03 exam is 25 multiple choice questions. F04 is 20 multiple choice questions. Like I said, you might as well just take the F04 and pay for both your F04 and F03. I didn't design the system. That's just the way it is. You'll have 38 minutes to pass the F03, and you have 30 minutes to pass the F04. So if you want more time, F03. If you want less questions, F04. Here's some stuff on changing your mailing address, changing work location. This is all stuff that's on FDNY's website. You can look it up later. Renewal requirements. This certificate lasts for 3 years. Just make sure you stay on top of it so you don't have to retake the test. It's only $15 to renew. And you pay just like you pay for anything else, credit card, debit, I guess e-check. I don't even know what that is. Renewal by mail. This is other stuff. Like this is not what we're here for, though. This is all stuff that you could find on the FDNY website. Renewal in person, same way. Moving on. Okay, so this is where you'll take the exam once the quarantine lifts. FDNY headquarters, 9 Metrotech Center, Brooklyn, New York. There's no parking there unless you have the money to pay for parking. Do not take your car. There's plenty of public transportation. I know the R and the W is over there. I think the A, C, and E is over there in that area. If you could look on the map, there's bus stops everywhere. Google it. Take the train or bus. About the study material, we are going right off the study guide from FDNY. Like I said, on the bottom left-hand corner of this PowerPoint presentation, it says this book is provided to the public for free by FDNY. This is a review of that material. We're not making any money off this. This is not our material. This is to help security officers and non-officers out there that when they leave quarantine to go out, get their F03, F04 license, certificate of fitness. This is a must for the summer seasons. I'm going to need security officers, adult course security, that have these certifications, because when the season kicks in for summer, the phone calls start coming in for event security, and they require to have F03 and F04 fire guards. We usually pay in the range of $20 to $25 an hour for those positions, sometimes more. It just depends on what type of client we're taking on. More information, we just went through it about the test. Example test, it's a multiple choice or sometimes multiple guess exam. It's very simple. There's procedures of taking the test, but it's just A, B, C, and D. What is the right answer? What's most likely going to be the answer? So if you can just use, what is it? You can just take the, what is that? Process of elimination. So use process elimination on the questions A, B, C, and D. What is the most likely is going to be the right answer? So you have your test. If you don't know the answer, find what is possibly not or cannot be the answer for it. But I think everybody here knows how to take a multiple choice / multiple guess questionnaire or test. So when are F03s and F04s required? Occupancy that has 200 people or more for outdoors and 75 people or more for indoor public gatherings. Usually the ratio is 1 F04 security officer, I know that, for outside for every 100 people that are of the general public. And indoors, usually it's whatever the director tells us from what we're seeing here, 1 person for every 75. Could be less depending on the space. Locations that you'll be using your F04 license would be cabarets, dance halls, indoor skiing rings, bowling alleys, museum, bingo halls, movie theaters, television, radio stations with a public audience, sports arenas, definitely, circuses, performing art theaters, stadiums, passenger terminals. These are places with mass gatherings of the public. Now, those are all indoors. Or temporary place of assembly takes place outside. Festivals, over here in Staten Island, we had the Winter Lantern Festival. We had the Impractical Jokers was here. But like anything that happens, let's say at Snug Harbor, College of Staten Island, what was it? We have old historic Richmond Town. They have events. Those are most likely going to be F04 security officers. Jones Beach over in Long Island, the concerts over there, F04s. Or anything that's similar to that is outside. Here's some more stuff about TPAs, which is temporary place of assemblies. Just so you know what type of employer you'll be looking for, what type of events your employers will be providing security for. Here's some definitions. Assembly areas, a designated area outside of a building to which the occupants are directed to report upon implementation of a partial evacuation or evacuation in accordance with a fire safety and evacuation plan or emergency action plan. Building information card. The commissioner may require by the rules the preparation of a building information card depicting and or setting forth the relevant fire safety information for a building or occupancy for which a safety and evacuation plan is required to be submitted to the department uh, pursuant. A building information card, when required to be prepared, shall be maintained on the premises and made available upon request to any department representative. This, when you're at an event, you will see the fire marshal show up and, possibly asking this of the security manager or the producer of the event. There's a very likely chance that they're going to approach you asking to present your F04 or F03 fire guard license. This is why you need to have it on you at all times. Building occupants. All persons in the building, including employees, building personnel, and visitors. Emergency healthcare facility, a sheltered area or building either naturally or artificially so lighted as well promote the health and safety of patients providing emergency care and containing uh, cots and or litters and emergency and medical equipment and supply required by New York State. These are just definitions. Evacuation, emptying of a building, the emptying of a building of all buildings occupants in response to a fire or an emergency. Fire safety and evacuation plan, a written plan which sets forth the circumstances, procedures for the in-building relocation, partial evacuation, or evacuation of building occupants required or as appropriate for such occupancy or building type in response to a fire. Like I said before, I don't know if I said before, but you are responsible for the evacuation of that building. So when you report to a temporary location, make sure you know your exits and the evacuation plan in case that is needed. Uh, FSP staff, the individuals identified in the fire safety and evacuation plan as responsible for implementation of such plan. Fire safety director or EAP director, the employee designated by the owner to perform duties of such position and who possesses the requisite qualifications and training set forth by fire rules. Um, to be a fire safety director, I highly suggest that too. That's good paying money as well for security positions. You have to go to John Jay or other locations out there that teach the class, pass a class, go to Metro Tech, get approved by a building, go to a building that has the position or you train in, get the 2 years experience. It's definitely a long process, but if you're looking to get past that, $15 to $20 an hour wage, this is another good way to have that as a permanent solution. So if you became a fire safety director and you have your F03 and F04, you're definitely making some good money. Fire drill, a training exercise by which building occupants are familiarized with and or practice the procedures of the safe, orderly, and expeditious in building. Okay, we've all went to a fire school. We all did fire drills when we were in school. Same thing. Um, in building relocation or evacuation as applicable to the occupancy or building type in accordance with the fire safety evacuation plan, and to evaluate the efficiency and effectiveness of the implementation of such a plan. In new office occupancies, fire drills must be conducted every 3 months. Remember that, every 3 months for the first 2 years after the certificate of occupancy is issued. In existence, office occupancies fire drills are required to be conducted every 6 months in hotels, new and existing. Fire drills must be conducted at least once every 3 months on each shift. It's just some serious highlighting that should be going on in your study guide. Partial evacuation. The emptying of a building from some, but not all building occupants in response to a fire or emergency. Disasters at public gatherings. We'll go through. Let's see. The Sumaro and Murray published a review research article of crowd disasters in a journal going over overcrowding and crowd control. It did not control the capacity of the event. So that's another thing. When you're at an event, there's going to be, and you see when you walk into a restaurant, from my experience, you can see maximum occupancy, 87 people, maximum occupancy, 1,000 people. Events are required to have that when they have their TPA. So make sure you look for that. Your security company that you work for or the director you work for should have a counting system in place. So probably like a clicker, which we're doing at the grocery stores right now for the COVID-19 response. We're only allowed to have 50 people in there, so we have guys with clickers, one clicking people in, one clicking out, and the difference has to be within that number. You'll do that for events, so you'll have someone at the entrance, one at the exit, clicking, double checking, making sure that you are under the maximum capacity for the event. Event access points. There's issues where there's too few exits. The flow of occupants was not controlled. The emergency medical services were unable to access the event site. Let me see. Okay. Fire safety measures. The emergency exits were blocked, not functioning properly with appropriate signage. There were no full site fire evacuation plans. These are definitely things as a fire guard that you need to make sure are in place while you're being employed, because you are responsible as well. And the last thing you want is a disaster taking place because the producer, the fire safety director, or the fire director or the security company did not go through this first. Medical preparedness. There were no major incident plans, and supporting hospitals were not involved in a timely manner. The media arrived, distracting emergency department personnel. And emergency response. Many events reported poor initial communication response time with emergency services. So I think this is what they were going over. Port said stadium disaster. Port said Egypt 2012. Here's a disaster summary. At least 79 people were killed and over 1,000 injured were reported after an Egyptian football match. Fans threw bottles and fireworks at team players, and the fans were armed with knives, swords, clubs, and stones, and subsequently attacked the fans who tried to escape by running away. The deaths were caused by stab wounds, brain hemorrhaging, and concussions, while some deliberately thrown off the stands or died in stampedes. The steel exit doors were bolted shut, and dozens were crushed to death in the stampede. Over 1,000 injuries were reported, some from panic in the crowd as fans tried to escape. The lessons learned here are control of hazardous materials, not letting fireworks, glass bottles, and definitely weapons when you're doing events. So a magnetometer definitely would have been one, as well as padding to make sure that people were not bringing items in. Event access points. Well, like they were saying, the doors were bolted shut, so there weren't any exits, or there weren't enough exits for the occupancy. If you look on the picture to the right, that's a lot of people. Fire safety measures. Who brings fireworks to events? I mean, this did take place in Egypt, but this is why there's pat downs. This is why there's magnetometers. This is definitely a responsibility of security who are letting people in, making sure they're not bringing in items that should not should not be there, as well as the producers to make sure that they're operating within safe measures. Emergency responses. That's a situation like this, very difficult for EMS to go inside as well as to receive when you have stampedes of crowds and to a point where people are getting crushed to death over them. So there was definitely poor planning for emergency evacuation. All right, Love Parade Stampede in Germany 2010. Just look at the picture to the right. Disaster summary. 21 people who died at the Love Parade Music Festival tragedy because they were crushed in a mass panic and suffocated. Over 500 people were injured. The capacity of the enclosed section was estimated to be a 250,000 of people, 250,000 people. But there were 1.4 million people attending the festival. This is something that you want to keep an eye on when you're letting people into your events or filtering through. This is why we have counters. 250,000 people, and they let 104 million. Completely illegal. This is your responsibility as a certificate of fitness holder. Do not allow that capacity to go past what FDNY determines it to be, or the TPA determines it to be. You can be in a lot of trouble along with other people responsible. But it's very important to make sure you narrow those numbers down to make sure, if they sell out, they sell out. And the producer of that event needs to know that, as well as it needs to be brought to the attention of your superiors if it starts going past that. The entrances of the music festival were too narrow, and the emergency exits were too few and were blocked. Very good idea to get there an hour at the event, an hour before, maybe even 2 hours before, to check the exits to bring any issues to the attention of your superiors. And if you don't feel that they're being addressed, it's always good to escalate them to make sure, because you're responsible for a lot of lives out there. Lessons learned: crowd control issue. Can't crowd. It's very difficult to control a crowd of 1.4 million when you're only suited for 250,000 people. Communication with EMS, absolutely. Incident plan, it's even if there was one, it was not set up for 1.4 million people. Event access points, they were too narrow, they were blocked, and they were rated for 250,000 people, not 1.4 million people. Now all the routes leading to the festival area are being widened and more emergency exits installed. The number of security and personnel has increased so that so that in an emergency situation there's enough manpower to direct people where to go. When there's mass panic, people are going to look for security officers. When a child's lost, they're going to look for security officers. When there's a fire, they're going to look for security officers. You are the person to calm people down and have them go forward in a organized fashion, whether it's exiting or just controlling panic so you can do your job. Lame Horse Fire, Perm, Russia, 2009. Disaster summary. The fire started when sparks from fireworks ignited the low ceiling and its willow twig covering. Oh, willow twig covering. Wait, it's willow twig coverings. Wow. The fire quickly spread to the walls and damaged the building's electrical wiring, causing the lights to fail. When the evacuation started, some people left via rear exit. The vast intake of oxygen turned the club's hull into a large fire tube and boosted the spread of the fire. As fumes and smoke overtook the air, panic erupted, and patrons stampeded towards the exits. One leaf of the club's doors was sealed shut. The public was unaware of the back door exit behind the stage, not shown by the emergency lighting. At least 150 people died in the blaze, most killed by carbon monoxide gas and smoke. There's a lot of things, combustible materials in a place where you're igniting fireworks, um, as well as not having well lit exits, and just your fire tetrahedron, spark, air, fuel. You had it all there, and it took the club um, quickly, and 130, 153 people in the mix. Lessons learned, fire safety measures. I think that goes without saying. Uh, Use of pyrotechnics should be in only approved facilities. No proper signs and directions for exiting. The second leaves of two sets of double doors were locked shut. Uh, if you're finding an exit locked, you need to, they need breakaway bars. You want to make sure people aren't coming in through the exits, but uh, it's always good. Do your rounds, make sure they're not blocked, make sure they're not locked. Here's a local one. I remember when this happened. Station nightclub fire, West Warwick, Rhode Island, USA, 2003. Disaster summary. There were more than two-thirds of the 462 people in the attendance were either killed or injured. 100 dead and 230 injured. A live band that was using fireworks as part of its act ignited foam insulation that had been installed around and over the stage. The flames quickly moved to the ceiling, creating billows of smoke, and panic raced for the front door. Fire safety measures. The club did not have an automatic sprinkler system to extinguish the fire. Club was at capacity. It was not overcrowded, but most of the victims died at the primary entrance where the rush of frantic spectators created a logjam at the front door. No proper signs or directions to direct the panic people to use exits routes other than the front door. When people are in panic, they see that they go in, they go out where they came in. This is why there's fire guard or security officers with COF. You're there, direct the traffic. Hey, we have an exit back here, we have an exit back there. It is also the responsibility of the station nightclub fire, though, to have well-lit exits for this. A lot of lessons were learned in fire safety here in the U.S. when this took place in '03. Ellis Park Stadium disaster, Johannesburg, South Africa, 2001. Disaster summary. 43 people were crushed to death and 158 injuries at an overcrowded stadium. Notice the trend here, overcrowding. The accident was caused when an estimated 30,000 extra fans tried to cram into the disaster summary. Tried to cram into the disaster summary. I think that's a typo. Already filled, which was already full, 60,000 capacity stadium by shoving and breaking through fences around the facility or climbed over the gates. Guards were unable to stop the crowd from pouring into the already full stands. People outside tried to push into the Ellis Park Stadium and were trapped against barbed wire. Movement of the mass people caused a major crush incident. Lessons learned. Overcrowding issue. Bribed security personnel admitting fans without tickets into the stadiums, and also thousands of complimentary tickets were used. Thus, it swelled the numbers far beyond the projections. Emergency response issues. Failed to clearly identify and designate areas of responsibility. Poor decision making by security personnel. No operation command center. You can see there's a lot of weight on security. They were bribed. There was poor decision making. There was no command center, which is not the personnel. That's the leadership. But these are things you do not want happen while on your watch, especially in your security career. There's legal implications all the way down to the security officer for certain incidents that take place. So do not get caught up in that. You see something that's a safety hazard that can lead to one of these events, you need to move it up the chain. And if the chain that you work for is not doing anything about it, you need to report them. Cinema fire in Delhi, India, 1997. Disaster summary. The fire broke out after the transformer at the parking level burst into the theater's basement car park, and 20 cars in the parking lot caught fire, eventually spreading through the cinema. 59 people died and 103 were seriously injured in the subsequent stampede. Most of the victims were trapped on the balcony and were suffocated as they tried to reach dimly marked exits to escape the smoke and fire, and found the doors to be locked. You can see there's a trend. Dimly lit fire exits, doors being locked. All doors, businesses don't want people coming in through the exits and not paying for the tickets, but they need breakaway bars. So it's always good to test those breakaway bars. Just make sure they don't have alarms when you're testing them. If they do, ask your supervisor or check with him or her before you go forward. Lessons learned, emergency response issues. Cinema management was blamed for losing precious time in alerting the fire services. When the fire broke out, the movie was not stopped nor any announcements made over the no, wait, hold on, I'm sorry. When the movie was not stopped nor any announcements made to evacuate the audience. This actually happened to me one time in Jersey. We were watching a movie and CO2 started pouring into the theater. Security came in. They stopped the movie. They told everybody they have to evacuate. Police started showing up. They had plenty of staff. It was well organized. And before it got worse, everybody was out of the building. It was a generator issue, pouring CO2 into the theater. All right, back to this. Fire safety measures. Proper distance between the transformer room and the car park was not maintained. Exit signs were not battery operated, and once the lights went out, panic-struck people had to grope in the dark for exits, many of which were blocked by seats. Okay, on to part one. Indoor place of assembly safety personnel. Duties of place of assembly safety personnel. So, place of assembly safety personnel are primarily to manage the occupants in the event of a fire or other emergency, verifying that the exits are unobstructed, immediately accessible, and appropriately identified is the first steps to achieving safety in a place of assembly. The management of occupants is primarily involved with moving them away from the hazard. In sum, two major duties of the place of assembly safety personnel are: one, maintaining the safety of the occupants during a gathering, and two, assisting and implementing the evacuation plan in the event of an emergency. Place of assembly safety personnel are important in preventing injury and fatalities from fires at places of assembly. They should know how to keep exit paths clear, how to identify potential problems, how to report the fire or other types of emergencies to the FDNY, and the responsible person and how to keep crowds orderly and safe during an emergency. 1.1 Fire Safety and Evacuation Plan. To be an effective place of assembly safety personnel, it is recommended that you have a working knowledge of Fire Safety Plan, FSP. The person should be provided with an orientation from the fire safety directors or fire safety coordinator, building owner, or other on-site personnel familiar with the responsibility of the fire safety and evacuation plan before starting to perform their duties. If any fire safety director or building employees responsible for implementing the fire safety and evacuation plan or testing FSP staff is provided in the building, The place of assembly safety personnel shall follow their instructions for the emergency procedures. In the event of a fire or fire alarm, the place of assembly safety personnel shall direct the evacuation of the area in accordance with the directions received and the evacuation plan. Generally, from the orientation, the safety personnel should know the location of exits and the means of communications with FDNY and occupants in the case of an emergency. Pre-event inspection. Pre-event inspection is important to reduce potential risk associated with the public safety. Pre-event inspection is important to reduce the potential risk associated with the public assembly events. The pre-event inspection should be conducted by a designated person, i.e., your supervisor or other responsible person, before the occupancy is to be used or occupied. If any defects are discovered, the building owner or designated responsible person, i.e., your supervisor or other responsible person, should be aware of it and should make arrangements to have the defects corrected. The following safety requirements should be met. 1. All physical features are installed or arranged according to the appropriate place of assembly drawings. 2. Door hardware and physical components of the means of egress must be maintained and in good working order at all times. 3. All required means of egress and access to such, including each exit, access, and exit discharge, must be maintained free of obstruction and impediments to immediate use in the event of a fire or emergency, which we spoke about all this before. So it's very important to show up to work early, do your rounds, make sure that anything that looks like it's obstructing an exit or any item that could hinder you from evacuating personnel from the event safely needs to be brought up to your supervisor or responsible person. So that's the producer, that is maybe whoever is in charge of the event, that maybe directing it, anybody of responsibility. And like I said, if they're ignoring it, maybe you need to make a call to FDNY if you feel it's relevant. Continuing on with part 1. No storage or combustible materials or combustible waste is allowed in the corridors. Maximum capacity posted. Place cards are required. So when you're working, make sure you know your maximum capacity. You have to stay on the people count. Make sure you're not overloading it because you are not equally, but you are responsible and can face penalties or punishment depending on what took place and where neglect fell. Number 6, emergency exit lighting. From the previous examples, that's one of the big things. Maximum capacity. There was combustibles, emergency exit lighting, or there was exits that were blocked. But you can see here on number 6, emergency exit lighting is a big thing. So make sure that those signs or those pathways are well lit. 7, exit signs and signs indicating the location of accessible means of egress are posted. Just people need to know. If they can't get out the entrance, which they're going to go for first, they need to know where else to go. And it will also help you with your job to direct people, since there's a chance that you don't know the facility as well because it's a temporary place of assembly. The seats should be securely fastened to the floor. For temporary seatings, the seats must be secured together in an approved layout. So that's something I didn't know. So that's the seats need to be secured together in approved layout. That's something that would be worth looking further into, because there's a lot of places that have temporary places of assembly that just the seats are not secured together either. A functioning fire alarm and sprinkler system, if available. If any required fire protection system is out of service, additional F01 fire guard is required. That's a whole different requirement. It's, you still go to the same place. You go through the same procedure as you are going through this test, but it's something wise to get. The pay is not all there, though, because a lot of people are F01 certified. But if you have that on top of your other fire guards, or you might as well just get all three, or all four, I mean, F01, 2, and 3, and 4. That's, you're making yourself worth more. And later on, we will work on doing an F01 fire guard PowerPoint. The acronym ESCAPE may be used as a reminder for doing pre-event inspections. E, exits. All exits are unblocked, unlocked, and properly marked. S, the occupancy is clean, orderly, and there is no excessive storage. No storage of combustible materials and combustible waste in the corridors. The hazardous materials are stored, handled, or used in the designated areas and are far away from an ignition source. C, capacity. The number of persons occupying the number of people occupying the building or space does not exceed the post capacity. Capacity certificates are posted properly. A, aisles. All aisles are free and clear at all times. Big thing. Always check the aisles. P, protection. Smoke, fire alarm, sprinkler systems, and fire extinguishers are in proper working order and have up-to-date inspections and testing performed. You can see when you look at the fire alarms, or the fire extinguishers, there's a card on there. Check if it was recently checked, and it will have a person's initials and the date they checked it. Make sure it was recent. E, emergency exit lighting. All exit signs and emergency exit lighting are working properly. So here's some examples down below. Blocked exit. Make sure all corridors are, all aisles are free and clear at all times. Make sure all exits are not blocked. Well, here's a blocked exit. Looks like it's also blocking a corridor. Unacceptable. Locked exit. Padlock key on a push bar exit. That should never happen. Obstructed aisles. Look at all the gear in the aisles. Imagine trying to run out of that building when there's a fire. You're going to trip over the do not slip sign or the caution sign. Obstructed manual pull stations. That's something, when you're doing your pre-rounds, and if you're an F01, that's something you need to look at, because the last thing you need is something between the fire guard and the pull station to alert the occupancies that a fire is taking place. During the event, as a place of assembly, as you can see to your right, your responsibilities include, but not limited to, the following duties. You should be aware of possible overcrowding by monitoring the amount of people in your area of assembly. If you notice that your responsible area is excessively crowded, you should inform your supervisor immediately and follow his or her instructions. Now, there's also beware of neglect on your supervisor's part or the person in charge. You should monitor the areas and confirm that the exit paths are always staying clear. Required aisles must be unobstructed. People should not be allowed to stand in or at the head of an aisle, because they're blocking the exit. And people can be just like items. They can block and be an obstructive situation. You should look for situations that could lead to challenges in the event of emergency. Always planning ahead. All right, an example of a checklist is shown below. So let's look. We have list, mark if X if yes, and a note. So pre-event. Do you know the locations of the exit stairways and evacuation routes? And this is on the PDF that is on the FDNY website. I suggest you print this out. So if you're going to an event, have this with you. So let's go back. 1, do you know the locations of the exit stairways and evacuation routes? No. If no, obtain such information before starting your duty. 2, do you know how to notify FDNY in the case of emergency? If no, obtain such information before starting your duty. 3, do you know how to notify your supervisor in case of overcrowding and emergency? If no, obtain such information before starting your duty. 4. Exits and stairways. Are they free of obstructions? Are exit doors, gates free of locks? Are self-closing doors all closed? And is lighting in exit corridors adequate and fully operational? If no, correct and comply. Obviously, you're not going to be fixing it, but get your supervisor. Your supervisor should be getting maintenance or whoever is in charge to make sure those corridors are lit. 5. Storage. Is the area clean, orderly, and no excessive storage? Are the hazardous materials stored, handled, or used only in the designated areas and are away from any ignition sources? If no, correct and comply. Capacity. Certificate place card. Is it posted? If no, you have a serious problem if the event starts without that card posted. But if no, correct and comply. Let your supervisor know. Show them the list if you have to. Aisles. Are aisles free and clear at all times? If no, correct and comply. Protection. Is any fire extinguisher provided and are they operational? If no, comply. Are fire alarm pull stations provided and operational in my area of responsibility? If yes, where are they located? If not required, what procedures will be used to notify building occupants of the fire? Emergency exit lighting. Are they operational? If no, report it to your supervisor. During an event inspection. Exit and aisles. Are the exits and exit paths staying clear? Or all marked exits remained unlocked and obstructed at all times? If no, correct and comply. Potential hazards. Any situation that could lead to challenges in the event of emergency. Looking ahead. Emergency notification procedures. Call 911, notify the occupants by, and the procedure that's in place, bullhorn, intercom system, whatever, let's say the people responsible, the producers I always go to, what they put in place for this, what's put in place, to comply for the TPA. If they're using a fire guard, they should have some type of system in place because they're already doing this, hiring you to meet compliance of FDNY. The designated people, fire safety director or building owner. For emergency situations, their phone numbers are name, phone numbers. This is another thing you could print off of FDNY's website and have with you. All right, special fire safety precautions for theaters. Safety personnel are required for performing arts, motion picture theaters, or other similar indoor public gatherings. Regular inspections required for theaters. Every theater emitting an audience should be periodically inspected for fire safety in compliance with the fire department requirements. 2.1 Daily inspections. The responsible person must conduct a daily inspection in a performing arts or motion picture theater on any day on which the occupant is to be used and occupied for a performance or other audience events. Such inspections may be performed by you, your supervisor, or other responsible person, and the inspections shall verify compliance with the following requirements. A. Means of egress, including exits, access, exit, and exit discharge, shall be inspected daily to ensure that they are unobstructed, that there are no impediments to their immediate use in the outdoor hardware and other device and components, and are in good working order. B. Automatic fire doors shall be inspected to ensure that there are no obstructions in their closing or otherwise rendered inoperable. Standpipe sprinkler systems, including fire pumps and water storage tanks, shall be inspected to ensure they are in good working order. D. Portable fire extinguishers shall be inspected to ensure that they are readily available for use, as required by fire code. The inspection card is on the fire extinguisher. If you don't see one, you need to address it with your supervisor. If special effects are to be used during the performance, all of the conditions of the permit, including where applicable, a fire watch and or additional portable fire extinguishers are in place. Remember, using special effects, i.e., pyrotechnics. Very important to check the conditions ahead of time to make sure you don't run into the same situation they did in Long Island, or not Long Island, but Rhode Island with that the fire at that club. F. Manual fire alarm boxes located on the stage of performing art theaters shall be tested by activating the alarm. Prior notification shall be made to the central station monitoring the fire alarm system. Basically, don't test it without notifying the central station, or FDLI will show up to your building. G. The means by which skylight and other stage smoke vents may be manually activated are fully operational and are readily available. H. All areas of the theater, including the backstage, under the stage, and outdoor areas near the fresh air intake for the building's ventilation system, shall be inspected to ensure that there is no accumulation of rubbish or other combustible waste that, if ignited, could cause a fire or smoke condition. 2.2. During the performance, the event coordinator shall make an audio announcement not more than 10 minutes prior to the start of each performance of the program, informing the occupants of the location of the exits to be used in case of an emergency. The commissioner may grant an exception if the occupancy has at least one exit clearly visible from every seat or standing area. As a place of assembly, safety personnel, you should verify if the following requirements are complied. A. The prohibition against smoking in performing arts, motion picture theaters, or other similar indoor public gatherings. B. All procentrium walls and doors in a performing arts theater are kept closed. C. Aisles must be unobstructed. It is unlawful to stand or allow any person to stand in or at the head of an aisle. The space must be occupied by standing audience the space to be occupied by standing audience members must be separated from the space to be left clear for passage by rope, tape, barriers, barricades, fencing, or other suitable materials at height if not less than 3 feet nor more than 4 feet above the floor, supported by lightweight posts, all to be constructed at place so as not to constitute an obstruction in case of a panic or emergency. Such standing areas must be clearly demarcated by durable markings on the floor indicating boundaries of the standing area. For standing in balconies, only one row of persons shall be allowed to stand in the balconies. So take a look at this picture. See how people are in the aisles there, the steps down to see the performance? That is unacceptable, because if there's a fire, or if they have to exit out of emergency, or someone just has to go to the bathroom, these people are in there right now. But for emergency procedures, this is a big no-no. So when you're doing your rounds and you see this happening, make sure they're going to their seats. And from a security standpoint, maybe they're there and they didn't pay for a ticket, so they don't have a seat to sit in. For standing in passageways, if the passage is more than 6 feet or less than 16 feet deep, persons may stand therein, provide an unobstructed passageway of at least 6 feet in depth is left open. And there is no more than 4 rows of persons standing. 2. If the passageway is more than 16 feet deep, any number of persons or rows of persons may stand therein consistent with the approved occupancy, provide that an unobstructed passageway of at least 10 feet in depth is left open. If you have to make sure you have your study guide with you and go through with us on this, because this is something you need to highlight and remember. I would come with some type of model to remember these things, 6 by 16, and then what was it, more than 16 two persons rows, just to have something to help you remember these numbers. Now, here's a good visual for you. Here we have a max of 4 rows, and there's at least 6 feet. And now you have more than, and that's 6 to 16 feet. So you have 10 feet here of people, max of 4 rows, 6 feet open. More than 16 feet. So any number of rows, but there has to be a 10-foot opening over here. In places of assembly, having a passageway to the rear of the seats 6 feet or less in depth, and having an addition outer passage in the rear thereof to which all aisles have straight and direct access. A maximum of 2 rows of persons may be permitted to stand in the passageway to the rear of such seats. So there's some note-taking should be taking place here. Let's go through that one more time. In place of assembly, having a passageway to the rear of the seats, 6 feet or less in depth, and having, in addition, an outer passageway to the rear thereof, to which all aisles head have a straight and direct access. A maximum of 2 rows of persons may be permitted to stand in the passageway to the rear of such seats. So, see a layout over here for standing area. Regular inspection. The occupancies shall be operated and maintained in accordance with the fire code requirements, including conducting the periodic inspection and testing of fire protection systems required by fire department. Out of service fire alarm sprinkler or standpipe systems shall be reported immediately to your supervisor. At least one F01 fire guard must be present. The detailed information about the out of service fire protection system can be referred to the F01 certificate of fitness study material. Now, the numbers on the fire guards, F01 through F04, do not run on a hierarchy. So just because you have an F03, F04 does not mean that you are certified to conduct the duties of an F01. F01 is for systems that are temporarily out of service for more than 4 hours, to where an impairment coordinator needs to have a certificate of fitness holder of F01. Can't have an F03 or an F04 performing that job. Totally different jobs, or even an F02. F02 is for like shelters, and that's about as much as I know about that one. But if you're an F03 and F04 and you do not have your F01, make sure if there's a system out of service that they're not using you to conduct F01 duties, because if that fire marshal shows up and you don't have your F01 and you're performing F01 duties, you're going to get in some trouble. Part 2, temporary place of assembly safety personnel. Orientation. Safety personnel is required in any event that needs temporary place of assembly permit TPA. For example, festivals, outdoor concerts, or other similar temporary public gatherings. Prior to the temporary place of assembly event, the sponsor and or promoter of such events shall provide a site plan approved by the Department of Buildings. A responsible person, your supervisor, you, or other designated person, should ensure that its materials, operations, and facilities are designed, installed, operated, and maintained in compliance with the requirements of the site plan, the fire code, and the fire department rules. To be an effective place of assembly safety personnel, it is recommended that you have the working knowledge of the site plan. In some cases, fire department personnel may be on scene to provide additional direction or modification of the site plan when needed. For TPA activities, the safety personnel may perform their duties for different events based on different site plans. Upon the safety personnel arrival at the area, the personnel should be provided with an orientation from the event coordinator or other on-site personnel familiar with that is familiar and responsible for the site plan. Generally, from the orientation as a place of assembly safety personnel, you should. You should. I think there's a typo. Generally, from the orientation as a place of assembly safety, you should know. There we go. This was a typo. So you should know: 1, the location and number of exits. 2, the procedures of evacuations and the evacuation routes. 3, the limitation of the number of occupants. 4, the concessionaries and the nature of activity that they will conduct and the associate risk. So, yeah. Location of the fire extinguishers. 6, if there is a dedicated telephone line to the fire department, shall be available for emergencies. I'm going to tell you, if you are working events and you don't know the limitation number of occupants, you're not doing your job correctly. I mean, you need to know all this stuff. The location and number of exits is a big one, and the procedure, all 6. But one that gets overlooked is the limitation and number of occupants, because then you'll start knowing, oh, we only need 1,000 people here. You can tell when 1,000 looks like 1,500. It just, that number clicks in, and you know to investigate and notify those who need to be notified to shut down the front gate, or I don't know, the ticket says sold out. Normally, Department of Buildings requires: 1, every safety personnel posted at exits shall be equipped with two-way radio communications, walkie-talkies, in order to communicate with persons manning a telephone to the fire department for an emergency. Every safety personnel posted at event entrance shall be equipped with a device, e.g. scanner, handheld counter, ticket, to verify the occupancy count. The designated persons should monitor the occupants load and actual flow of public gathering area. 3. The duties of temporary place of assembly safety personnel, which I think I already said. 3.2. Pre-event inspection. The pre-event inspection should be conducted by a designated person, e.g. your supervisor, or, you or a responsible person. Before the area is to be used or occupied, the following site conditions shall be inspected prior to the event. Exits. All exits are unblocked, unlocked, and properly marked. Storage. The area should be clean, orderly, and no excessive storage. All means of egress should be free of debris and rubbish. No storage of combustible materials and combustible waste in corridors. The hazardous materials are stored, handled, or used only in the designated areas and are away from the ignition source or any ignition source. Capacity limit. What is the limit of capacity? Know your limit of capacity. Know your limit of capacity. Aisles. All required aisles are free and clear at all times. Temporary seating must be secured together in an approved layout. Protection. The fire extinguishers are provided at the designated and conspicuous locations, and they are operational. So you have two pictures up here. Chairs should be ganged, leaving a wide open corridor. Temporary, unsecured, or ungaged chairs may pose a great hazard in the event. So I'm trying to wonder why it's covering that the device that's over the electric cords. I mean, that's very important you have that there, but maybe that's because they're temporarily separated because of it. I don't know. Prohibitions. Compressed natural gas, CNG. The storage, handling, and use of CNG is prohibited at outdoor public gatherings. 3.3.2. Flammable liquids. It shall be unlawful to store, handle, or use flammable liquids at outdoor public gatherings, except in listed generators or other devices, equipment, or systems or operation approved by the department. Incidental storage of flammable liquids is prohibited, and all fueling of generators and or other approved devices. Equipment and systems shall be conducted only at the times other than when the event is open to the public. As a place of assembly, safety personnel, your responsibilities include, but are not limited to, the following duties. 1. You shall prevent overcrowding by monitoring the amount of people in your area of assembly. If you notice that your area responsibility is excessively crowded, you should inform your supervisor immediately and follow his or her instruction. 2. You should monitor the areas and confirm that the exit paths are always staying clear. Required aisles must be unobstructed, highlighted there in green. People should not be allowed to stand in or at the head of the aisles. We have said that a few times now. 3. You should look for situations that could lead to challenges in the event of an emergency. Always looking ahead. Worst case scenario. So here we have it as another list for temporary place of assembly safety personnel. Do you know the evacuation routes? If no, obtain such information before starting your duty. 2. Do you know how to notify FDNY in case of emergency? If no, obtain that information. 3. Do you know how to notify your supervisor in case of overcrowding and emergency? If no, obtain such information before starting duty. 4. If you are posted at an exit, you are equipped with a two-way communication device, i.e. walkie-talkie. If no, obtain one before starting your duty. If you're going to an event and they don't have the radios, maybe you should notify someone else if the supervisor thinks that's okay. 5. Exits and stairways. Are they free of obstructions? Exit doors and gates free of locks? Are self-closing doors all closed? And is lighting in the exit corridors adequate and fully operational? If no, correct and comply. As you can see, this is pretty much the same as the last list we went over. Storage. Is the area clean, orderly, and no excessive storage? Are the hazard materials stored, handled, or used in the designed fashion? and are away from an ignition source. If no, correct and comply. Capacity limit. Are you aware of the limitations of the capacity? 8. Aisle, or aisles free and clear at all times. No, correct and comply. Protection. Is any fire extinguisher provided? Where are they? Are they operational? If no, obtain such information before starting your duties. During event inspection, exit and aisles. Are the exits and exit paths staying clear? Are all marked exits remained unobstructed at all times? If no, correct and comply. Potential hazards. Any situation that could lead to challenges in the event of an emergency. If yes, correct and comply. Same list that we had before. Your emergency notification procedures. You call 911, notify area occupants by whatever's the way that's been designated by the event coordinator. The designated people, fire safety director, event coordinator, supervisor for emergency situations, their names and phone numbers. Fire protection system. Manual or pull station devices. Fire alarm systems are intended to notify building occupancies. Fire alarm systems are intended to notify building occupants to evacuate in the event of a fire or other emergency. Some fire alarm systems are activated automatically. Other fire systems must be activated manually. Fire alarm systems that are manually activated use fire alarm pull stations. The interior manual pull station may not directly transmit a signal to the fire department. A telephone call must always be made to 911. Note that. I'll say it one more time. The interior manual pull station may not directly transmit a signal to the fire department. A telephone call always must be made to 911 or the fire department dispatcher. Do not assume that the fire department has been notified to hear a fire alarm or smoke detector sounding in the building. Fire alarm pull stations shall be located near the exits throughout the protected area so that they are conspicuous, unobstructed, and accessible. Activating the pull station is the most effective way to notify the building occupants in case of a fire emergency. There must be at least one manual alarm station on each floor of a building except residential buildings. Manual fire alarm pull stations should be of contrasting color to the background on which they are mounted. Approved plastic covers are permitted to protect the fire alarm manual pull station and provide relief from false alarms. There are two types of manual pull stations. They are called single action and double action stations. And here they are right here. A single action station, single action stations require only one step to activate the alarm. The cover on these alarms stations serve as a lever. An example of a single action station is shown below. This kind of alarm station is often found indoors, e.g. in office buildings. When the cover is pulled down, it allows a switch inside to close. This sends the alarm signal. You can see on the left what it looks like, and on the right what it looks like being activated. Double action stations. Double action stations require two steps in order to activate the alarm. The user must break glass, open a door, or lift a cover. The user then can gain access to the switch or lever, which must then be operated to initiate the alarm. To activate this type of alarm station, cover must be lifted before the lever is pulled. This kind of double action station is often found indoors. Another kind of double action is where you break the glass. Requires someone to break a small pane of glass with a small metal mallet. And you can see there's on the right, you can see on the left, push in, then pull down, lift the handle, then pull. So there's one other thing you have to do. Another one, lift the plastic. But yeah, you've probably seen them where you just get a little hammer and you break glass. All right, fire protection systems. The certificate fitness holder must know how to manually operate each alarm station on the premise. Once activated, the fire alarm system cannot be reset at the fire alarm manual pull station. Cannot be reset at the fire alarm manual pull station only. The alarm must be reset at the main fire alarm control panel. It's FACP. After the pull station reset to its normal condition. The alarm may be reset only by an S95 certificate fitness holder after by instruction by a fire department representative if it is caused by a fire or fire-related emergency. Once activated, a key may be required to reset the manual pull station. Certificate fitness holders should become familiar with the location of all fire protection devices, as well as interior and street alarm pull stations. All fire alarm pull stations installed or relocated after April 1st, 1984 should be installed so that the handle is approximately 4 feet from the floor and it is located within 5 feet of the exit doorway opening. Manual stations should never be blocked or obstructed. 4.2 Safety requirements. Several types of safety signs may be posted at various locations inside the building. The signs are designed to ensure the safety of occupants. For example, these signs may indicate the general fire safety procedures to be followed during a fire emergency, the location of fire extinguishers and emergency exits, how to use the fire extinguishers and related firefighting equipment, how to sound the fire alarm in case of emergency, that the elevators must not be used in case of a fire unless otherwise instructed by the fire department, and the floor numbers. The certificate of fitness holder should be familiar with the requirements of the fire safety signs. Having knowledge of the signs would help this person perform his or her duties. He or she should also make sure that exit signs posted above the doors are always illuminated. Examples of some of these signs are shown here. You have your exit signs, your elevator warning signs, location sign for a fire extinguisher, special exit signs. We'll go to saying earlier with the breakaway bars. Fire door alarm will sound if door is open. Do not block. Sprinkler signs, more sprinkler signs, no smoking signs. (4.3) Sprinkler system. A sprinkler system is an active fire protection requirement specified by FDNY regulation and laws. All apartment buildings constructed after March 1999 are required by law to be equipped with fire sprinkler systems throughout the building. It consists of a water supply system that provides adequate pressure and flow rates to the distribution piping system, onto which fire sprinklers are connected. Its purpose is to control the fire and extinguish the fire. Sprinkler systems are intended to control the heat release rate of the fire to prevent building structures collapse and pre-wet the surrounding materials to prevent fire spread. The fire is only extinguished when the burning combustibles are extinguished or after manual extinguishment is done by firefighters. Water reactive substance may pose special risks at locations. When the sprinkler system is out of service, it cannot extinguish fires directly to prevent the spread of flames throughout other areas of the building. When sprinklers are not present, the chances of dying in a fire or the property loss in a fire will be significantly increased. The sprinkler system is fitted with automatic devices designed to release fire. I'm sorry, designed to release water on fire. These devices are called sprinkler heads. The sprinkler heads are normally closed by a disc or cap. This cap is held in place by a heat-sensitive releasing element. A rise in temperature to a predetermined level causes the sprinkler head to open. Water is then discharged in the form of spray. When the sprinkler heads open, they are said to have fused. The sprinkler heads are fitted at standard intervals on the piping. If more than one head opens, the area sprayed by each overlaps that of the other sprinkler head next to it. A certificate of fitness for S12 for supervision of citywide sprinkler systems is responsible for conducting inspections and ensuring maintenance in compliance with fire code. So if you could see, this is the making of a sprinkler head. Here's the cap, here's a deflector where it causes the water to spray. Once the heat temperature hits, this whole assembly comes apart, releasing the water into the area. A typical fusible link sprinkler head is shown in the picture below. That's what it's saying here, but it's actually above right here. Standpipe system. Standpipe system is a fire protection system that is designed to provide rapid access to water in the event that a fire breaks out. Standpipes are installed as standalone systems which act as building-specific fire hydrants. Standpipes can be combined with sprinkler systems. They can provide automatic or manual sprinklers as well as connection points for fire hoses. If the standpipe system is out of service, firefighters may not be able to access, may not be able to have access to water delivery systems for manual firefighting. These systems are most commonly installed in buildings which are tall, large, or highly specialized, or in other buildings. Dry standpipe systems consist of a series of pipes which bring water to various points in buildings when it is used by firefighters. The pipes are dry and empty whenever there is not a need. Wet systems are charged, meaning that they are always filled with water. Water reactive substance may pose special risks at locations. So with dry systems, there's no water in the pipes until the water pump is charged. Because say the pipe runs outside, could freeze, burst. Data centers also run dry systems too, because if there's a leak, it could cause catastrophic damages. And the wet system is charged and ready to go at all times. Down below, you can see there is a picture of a manual fire pull station and a smoke detector. Here we have fire alarm systems. Fire alarm systems are required in many premises as part of a fire protection system. The new 2014 Fire Code has expanded the requirements for fire alarm systems, which includes but are not limited to the following buildings: hospitals, universities, or as specified in New York City Building Code. The primary purpose of a fire alarm system within protected premises is to warn building occupants and transmit signals indicating a fire condition to the fire department via an approved central station company. The out-of-service fire alarm system may cause a delay in building users and the fire department being alerted to a fire and then lead to a risk of serious property loss, personal injury, or death. A fire alarm system is a system consisting of components and circuits arranged to monitor and enunciate the status of fire alarms and supervisory signal initiating devices, and to initiate the appropriate response to these signals. In general, a fire alarm system is classified as automatic, manually activated, or both. If a fire condition occurs, the fire alarm system warns the occupants within the premises by activating loud sirens, gongs, bells, speakers, horns, and flashing lights, strobes. An S95 certificate of fitness for supervision of fire alarm systems is responsible for conducting inspections and ensuring maintenance. (5.1) General emergency procedures. The safety personnel must have a method of communicating to the emergency services. The building owner or the designated person should provide communication method for the safety personnel to notify FDNY in case of a fire or other types of emergencies. Notifying by phone is the most direct and effective way to notify fire department. The safety personnel must also sound the fire alarm pull station when available. Activating the pull station is the most effective way to notify the building occupants in case of a fire. To report an emergency event by telephone, the safety personnel must dial 911. After calling 911, the safety personnel should follow the emergency reporting protocols, providing that your supervisor or the designated responsible person, for example, designated responsible person or the building owner, should be notified. The designated responsible person of the building owner will also issue instructions to the safety personnel. The safety personnel must follow instructions closely. For example, the reasonable person may instruct the safety personnel how to talk the safest, let's go back with that one. The safety personnel must follow instructions closely. For example, the responsible person may instruct the safety personnel how to take the safest evacuation route from the building. As a public of assembly safety personnel, the FDNY highly recommends that you should be equipped with a flashlight, two-way radio communication device, i.e. walkie-talkie, and a cell phone. You should be familiar with your facility's emergency response plan. You must be trained by the reasonable person to know your responsibilities and during the following emergencies. During the following emergencies, yeah. 5.2, fire emergency. In case of a fire emergency, the most direct and effective way to notify FDNY is calling 911 and also activating the manual pull station when available. The fire alarm will send an alarm signal, and it may also notify an approved central station company. The fire department should be contacted directly by phone or other approved devices. In case of a fire emergency, building occupants may have to evacuate. If the safety personnel is responsible for assisting in the evacuation, the safety personnel should remain composed and in control of the situation. He or she should speak in a clear and concise manner when assisting the evacuation. The safety personnel's instruction and his or her action play an important role in reducing panic during an emergency. Occupants should be instructed to be calm and move quickly to the nearest exit in an orderly manner. The safety personnel should guide the occupants not to use the elevators and should identify the stairwells or other routes of egress for occupants and direct them to use only those stairwells and routes of the egress. In summary, the procedure should be call 911, provide the following information: business name and street address, nature of the fire, the extent of the fire, small, large, etc., and type of fire. If you identify it, ordinal combustible, flammable liquids, electrical, etc. The exact location of the fire, building and floor or room number, if known. Telephone number for a return call. Notify the building occupants by using fire alarm pull stations if available. Notify the designated building personnel, fire safety director or building owner, if there is any fire safety director or an EAP on staff on duty, follow their instructions for evacuation. If there is no fire safety director or an EAP staff in charge, Evacuate the area in building relocation, partial evacuation, or evacuation of building occupants, along with evacuation routes to assembly areas designated by the evacuation plan. Medical emergency. In the case of an injury or some other medical emergency, inform the designated person. For the place of assembly events with attendance of over 5,000 people, an on-site emergency healthcare facility may be provided. If an emergency healthcare facility is provided on site, the building owner or the designated person, i.e., your supervisor, should provide a communication method for you to notify the facility for any medical emergency. If there is no on site emergency healthcare facility, the safety personnel should call 911 and also follow the medical emergency reporting protocols. In summary, the procedure should be call 911 or notify the emergency healthcare facility, state the immediate medical need, and describe your location and the location of the victims if different from your location, including the business name, street address, and room number if you know it. Telephone number for return call, the number of victims if it's nature of injury or illness, or the victim's present condition, i.e., bleeding, breathing erratically, conscious, unconscious, etc., and hazards involved. Follow the exact instructions of the 911 operator or the instructions of the on-site medical technician of the emergency facility. Alert trained employees, members of the medical response team, to respond to the victim's location and stay with the victim. Only the trained responder/employees should provide first aid assistance. If there are no trained responders, employees on the premises, designate a responsible person, i.e., a member of the fire brigade, and stay with the victim. Arrange for an elevator to be placed on standby. Do not move the victim unless the victim's location is unsafe. Control access to the scene. Arrange a designated person to meet the ambulance at the nearest entrance or emergency access point to direct them to the victim. Bomb or other explosion threats, 5.4. If you suspect any suspicious package and are unable to verify its contents, you should follow the emergency reporting protocols provided by your supervisor. Generally, you should do the following. Do not touch, move, or open the article. Your supervisor or designated person, i.e. fire safety director or emergency action plan director, should be notified. Wait for the instructions from the first respondent. If there is any fire safety emergency action, if there's any fire safety / emergency action plan director on duty, follow their instructions. If you call 911, provide the following information: your location and the location of the suspicious package, if different from your location. Include the business name, street address, and room number if you know it. Telephone number for a return call. 5.5. Chemical incident or release. In case of a major spill, you must notify the fire department by calling 911 immediately. After calling 911, your supervisor or designated person, i.e. fire safety director or EAP, should be notified. Wait for the instruction from the first respondent. If there is any fire safety or emergency action plan director on duty, follow their instruction. Active shooter incident. Because active shooter attacks are dynamic events, the FDNY cannot put forth a set required action during such incidents. However, the FDNY has compiled a list of best practices recommendations based on booklets developed by the New York City Police Department, U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and U.S. Department of Justice for safety personnel to be best respond if an active shooter attack occurs. The following recommendations are general guidelines. They are considered as best practices and may be useful in a real-life emergency. It is not the purpose of this training material to provide unbending absolute rules for situations in which there are great many variables. The most appropriate emergency response may vary depending on the specific active shooter situation which occurs within the context of the event, the building design, and components. If an active shooter incident occurs outside the building, as a safety personnel member, you should call 911 immediately, secure the building entrances, including loading docks, garage doors, or any other doorways from the outside, to prevent the shooter from entering the building. Notify the designated person, i.e. your fire safety director or building owner. Relocate all occupants in the affected area, i.e. that may experience immediate impact by the incident, such as lobbies or windows, to a safe in-building relocation areas. Basically just anything away from the outside area where bullets can penetrate. Prevent building occupants from evacuating to avoid encountering outside threat. If an active shooter incident occurs inside the building, as a safety personnel member, you should react quickly when gunshots are heard and or when a shooting is witnessed by following one of the three tactics: avoid, barricade, confront. NYPD suggests 3 survival techniques during an active shooter incident. The survival techniques can be fluid based on the threat and may not have to be followed in a specific order. Individual decisions should be made based on the active shooter's locations. Avoid, run, evacuate. If there is an accessible escape path, attempt to evacuate the premises. Be sure to guide and assist the occupants with the following issues. Have an escape plan and a route in mind. Visualize the entire escape route before beginning to move, and avoid using elevators or escalators. Evacuate regardless of whether others agree to follow. Leave your belongings behind. Do not carry any packages or items that could be confused as weapons or devices. Help others escape if possible. Prevent individuals from entering an area where the active shooter may be. Call 911 when it is safe to do so. Provide pertinent information. Barricade. If it is not possible to evacuate, find a place to barricade yourself into, where the active shooter is least likely to find you. Where to barricade. Ideal barricade places should be out of the active shooter's view, but not just visual concealment. Soft walls, desk may conceal, but provide no substantial ballistic protection. Ideal barricade place should be an area where both visual concealment and ballistic cover that can provide protection if shots are fired in your direction. Cover something of substantial thickness and weight that will stop a bullet. Office furniture and equipment such as vending machines, copy machines, and file cabinets can stop many types of bullets. Ideal barricade place should not trap or restrict your options for movement. What to do when barricading. Lock the door if applicable. Blockade the entrance with heavy furniture if applicable. Silence, not vibrate your phone, pager, or any other electronic devices. Turn off any source of noise, radio, televisions. Hide behind large items, file cabinets, cotton machines, soda machines, etc. And remain quiet. Confront, fight, and take action. If it is not possible to avoid or barricade, as a last resort, and only when your life is in immediate danger, attempt to disrupt and or incapacitate the shooter. Collaborate and act as a group if possible. Act aggressively. Throw items and improvised weapons. Yell. Commit to your actions. As a civilian, you are not expected to neutralize an active shooter threat. However, you should try to implement the actions that can minimize the injuries to the occupants. For example, if an active shooter starts shooting in close proximity to your location, you should protect yourself based on the 3 tactics suggested by the NYPD. You may run away from the scene. You may hide, shelter in place, or you may decide to confront the shooter as a group, if possible, using improvised weapons. Remember, all of these are a personal choice to be decided on by you at the moment. Call 911 as soon as it is safe to do so. Once you feel it is safe to return to your designated working location, it is safe to do so. If it is safe to do so, return to carry out your suggested responsibilities. The following actions are recommended by the FDNY upon active shooter events. If you feel it is safe to do so, immediately call 911. The following information, if known, should be provided to the 911 operator. Building address, location of the active shooter, or his or her last known location, number of shooters, if more than one, physical description of shooter, name and identity of shooter, if it's an employee or if you know, number and types of weapons held by the shooter, number of potential victims at the location, if explosives were heard. Note, if you cannot speak, leave the line open and allow the dispatcher to listen. Notify the designated building personnel, i.e. the fire safety director or building owner. Turn on the lights. Visitors normally do not use escape routes that are unfamiliar to them. You need to make sure all emergency exits are clearly posted and utilized in the emergency. If there is a fire safety director or EAP on staff, follow the instructions for evacuation. If there is no fire safety director or EAP staff in charge, help the occupants to evacuate to a safe area. Manual fire alarm systems should not be activated for an active shooter emergency. The manual pull stations should only be activated during fire or smoke conditions. If you're outside, you should report to your assigned evacuation assembly area and be prepared to assist guests to remain calm while they relocate friends and family members. Cooperate with the first responders. Interacting with police officers. During an active shooter emergency, the FDNY normally will not be in the building to direct the required actions. The police officers will respond to the 911 call immediately and go to the building. Police officers will proceed directly to the last known location of the active shooter. As a place of assembly safety personnel, you should expect police officers may wear regular patrol uniforms or external bulletproof vests, Kevlar helmets, or other tactical equipment. Police officers may be armed with rifles and shotguns in addition to their handguns. Police officers may shout commands and may order individuals to the ground for their safety. You may need to quickly provide the police officers with the following information, if known. Location of the active shooter, of his or her last known location, number of shooters, if there's more than one, physical description of the shooter or shooters. Name or identity of that shooter, if it's an employee or someone you know. Number and type of weapons held by the shooters. Number of potential victims at the location. A special design of the building. Are there open space, interior, partition, materials, etc. Unique tenants. High-profile occupants, political officials, armed security, or disabled persons, etc. If explosions were heard. The police officers may request you or other safety personnel to operate and control the building systems. To assist in isolating the shooter, it is critical for you to follow orders of the police officer. Remember that the first police officers to arrive on the scene may not stop to help injured persons. Expect teams comprised of additional officers and emergency medical personnel to follow the initial responding officers. These teams will treat and remove any injured personnel from the area that have been cleared by the first responding police officers. They may also call upon able-bodied occupants to assist in removing the wounded from the premises. Portable fire extinguishers. The certificate of fitness holder must be familiar with the use of the fire extinguisher. All fire extinguishers must be installed so the top of the extinguisher is not more than 5 feet above the floor, and the clearance between the bottom of the extinguisher and the floor is not less than 4 inches. In other words, no fire extinguisher is allowed to be on the floor. You can see to the left we have an acceptable 4 inches. In the middle, it's not more than 5 feet above the floor to make sure it's not out of the reach of your average height person. And on the very right, we have a stackable and portable stand for which is convenient for temporary installation, which you could probably see for an outdoor event that doesn't have walls. On the left, you can see what's unacceptable. Access to the fire extinguisher is obstructed, and another one, which is completely unacceptable too, which is just laying on the floor. Description of the left, the top of the extinguisher must not be more than 5 feet above the floor, so I guess it's more than 5 feet, and the fire extinguisher must be accessible and unobstructed. And to the right, the bottom of the extinguisher must be at least 4 inches above the floor, which it's definitely not. In the event of a fire extinguisher has been discharged, a fully charged replacement is required before work can resume. The C of F holder, which is you, is recommended to be trained for the use of portable fire extinguishers. Portable fire extinguishers are important in preventing a small fire from growing into a catastrophic fire. However, they are not intended to fight large spreading fires. The trained certificate of fitness holder should only consider extinguishing fires when they are limited in size and spread such that they can be readily extinguished using a portable fire extinguisher. By the time the fire has spread, fire extinguishers, even if used properly, will not be adequate to extinguish the fire. Such fires should be extinguished by the building fire extinguishing system or trained firefighters only. In case of any fire, FDNY must be notified. Fire extinguishers must be used in accordance with the instruction painted on the side of the extinguisher. They clearly describe how to use the extinguisher in case of emergency. The certificate of fitness holder should be familiar with the use of portable fire extinguishers. When it comes to using fire extinguishers, just remember the acronym PASS. Make sure you use it properly. PASS stands for pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. The certificate of fitness holder must be familiar with the different types of extinguishers available at the worksite. The certificate of fitness holder must know how to operate the extinguishers in a safe and efficient manner. The certificate of fitness holder must also know the difference between the various types of extinguishers when they may be used. An example of these instructions is depicted in the picture. Over to the right. You can see 1, hold extinguisher upright, pull the ring safety pin. 2, stand back from the fire and aim at the base of the fire nearest to you. Squeeze the handle together, sweep the extinguisher stream side to side. Remember this simple word, PASS, pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. Class A fires are caused by ordinary combustible materials, such as wood, paper, and cloth. To extinguish A-class fires, these extinguishers utilize either the heat-absorbing effect of water or the coating effect of certain dry chemicals. Class B fires are caused by flammable or combustible liquids and gases such as oil, gasoline, etc. To extinguish a B-class fire, the blanket smothering effect of oxygen excluding media such as CO2, dry chemical, or foam is most effective. Class C fires involve electrical equipment. These fires must be fought with fire extinguishers that do not conduct electricity. Foam and water type extinguishers must not be used to extinguish electrical fires. After shutting off electrical equipment, extinguishers for Class A or B fires may be used. So use a C-type fire extinguisher. It's not saying in here, but it emits CO2. Or the ones I used when I was in the military was CO2 for the Class Cs. I think there's a all-purpose one with a powder in it as well. Class D fires are caused by ignitable metals such as magnesium, titanium, metallic sodium, or metals that are combustible under certain conditions, such as calcium, zinc, and aluminum. Generally, water should not be used to extinguish these fires. It can make the case a lot worse. Combustible metals can explode if you do that. In my experience, when there's a Class D, you need to get out of there. Class K fires are fires that involved vegetable oils, animal oils, or fat in cooking appliances. This is for commercial kitchens, including those found in restaurants, cafeterias, and caterers. Just think of Class K for kitchen. A multi-purpose chemical fire extinguisher may be used to extinguish multi-class fires. For example, some fire extinguishers are shown below. So we have a 1B and C. So that's for chemical and electrical. 3 we have a 3A, 40BC. I'm assuming that's for A, B, and C types fires. And then on the right we have a wheeled 3A, 40BC wheeled. Here's on the right, you'll see the different types of fires for each class with visual. So Class A shows the symbols, wood, paper, cloth, trash, or any ordinary combustible materials. B, you see the gas can, gasoline, oil, paint, other flammable liquids. C shows electrical plug, may be used for fires involving electrical equipment without danger to operator. D, combustible metals, and it's just a D with a star on it. And then C is for, or K is for cooking. Vegetable oil, animal oils, fats, stuff like that. And these symbols should be on the fire extinguisher when you see them. If not, then it's not really into code. I'll just go ahead and read the text on the left. Symbols may also be painted on the extinguishers. The symbols indicate what kind of fires the extinguishers may be used on. Example of these symbols are shown below or to the right. The symbols with a shaded background and the slash indicate when the extinguisher must not be used. And the certificate of fitness holder must understand these symbols. All fire extinguishers should be kept in good working order. So remember these symbols. I'm sure it's on the test. And what they stand for. Portable fire extinguishers. Portable fire extinguisher inspections. Monthly. Portable fire extinguishers are required to be checked monthly. The owner of the business is responsible to select a person to do monthly inspections. This inspection is called a quick check. The quick check should check if the fire extinguisher is fully charged. It is in a designated place. It has not been actuated or tampered with. There's no obvious or physical damage or condition to prevent its operations. The information of the monthly inspection record must include the date of the inspection, the name, initials of the person who did the inspection. This monthly quick check record must be kept on the back of the PFE tag or by an approved electronic method that provides a permanent record. When I worked in the hotels, I did that every month too. Annual inspection. At least annually, all portable fire extinguishers must be checked by a W96 certificate of fitness holder from an FDNY approved company. After each annual inspection, W96 COF holder will replace the PFE tag. The information of the annual inspection record must be indicated with a new PFE tag. Here you have a PFE tag, portable fire extinguisher. I don't think I can zoom in on it. Oh, I can. So you can see down in this area right here is where you would date it and initial it. Certificate of fitness holder stamp for, I'd have to say, probably the W98 holder. Hologram. So there's a chance that you might be the designated person to basically check the physical and to make sure it wasn't discharged and that's in the proper location. And you just date it, inspect it, or initial it, and move on. All right, tips. A real hologram stripe is 3 inches long by 1/4 inch wide. Counterfeit tags will not have a high quality silver hologram. The hologram on a counterfeit tag will not change color as it moves against the light. If your PFE tag looks different than the one pictured from the previous slide, contact your supervisor. If you suspect the PFE is a counterfeit, call FDNY immediately, contact FDNY immediately by emailing them at tags.decal@fdny.nyc.gov. And that's the end of the class. All right, so hopefully you learned what you need. This was a read along with the study guide, so hopefully with the auditory, the visual, that it increases your chances when you go to Metro Tech after the coronavirus is over with and Metro Tech is opened up to the public once again. Coming summer, this is a great certificate to have for to add to your security guard license, make some money. I suggest it to anybody with the security guard license. It's a great way to make some extra cash on the side. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at ian.dahlberg@dahlcor.com. Also, if you're looking for work during the summer, after you have your certificate of fitness, feel free to reach out and see if we have any positions available. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and I wish for you all to be safe and not get too bored and use your time wisely during this quarantine. And once we're out, I look forward to seeing you out running security at the events with your new F03 or F04 certificate of fitness. Good luck.